Our chief guest is here. Let's join him to welcome his with huge applauses. Please जोरदार तालियों से इस्तकबाल करें. The diamond of the world, the James Bond of India, the chief guest of the evening, His Excellency Shri Ajit Doval Sahab, KC, National Security Advisor of India. Our guest of honor, eminent journalist and author, Ali Janab Mohtaram M J Akbar Sahab, and our very special guest of the evening, the author of the book, Professor Ahmet T. Kuru. जोरदार तालियां एक बार हमारे तीनों मुअज़्ज़िज़ मेहमानों के लिए. मैं खुसरो फाउंडेशन के डायरेक्टर मोहतरम सिराजुद्दीन कुरैशी साहब से गुजारिश करूंगा कि आप तशरीफ लाएं और एक बुके पेश करके चीफ गेस्ट हिज एक्सीलेंसी श्री अजीत डोभाल सर का इस्तकबाल करें. जोरदार तालियां. नाउ आई वुड लाइक टू रिक्वेस्ट Shri Shantanu Mukherjee sir, Honorable Director of Khusro Foundation, please come and welcome our author, Professor T. Kuru, Professor Ahmet T. Kuru. हमारे डायरेक्टर मौजूद नहीं है, उनके बिहाफ पर मैं गेस्ट ऑफ ऑनर की खिदमत में एक गुलदस्ता पेश करता हूं मोहतरम एम जे अकबर साहब की खिदमत. खुसरो फाउंडेशन की इस वर्ल्ड बुक फेयर में प्रेजेंस जिस कम वक्त में पॉसिबल हो सकी हो, उसमें बहुत अहम रोल एनडीटी के ऑनरेबल डायरेक्टर श्री युवराज मलिक साहब का रहा है और वो चीफ गेस्ट का वेलकम करना चाहते हैं. मैं उनसे रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि प्लीज आप तशरीफ लाएं और चीफ गेस्ट का वेलकम करें. जोरदार तालियां. तालियों में कंजूसी नहीं होना चाहिए. हिंदुस्तान की और दुनिया की वो अजीम शख्सियत हमारी आज मेहमान खुसूसी है, जिसके लिए किसी शायर ने कहा है कि मसहल हमें जानो फिरता है फलक बरसों, तब खाक के पर्दे से इंसान निकलता है. एक ऐसा इंसान जो दुनिया में अमन की पहचान बन जाए, शांति का दूत बन जाए और पूरी दुनिया में दुनिया के मुल्कों के बीच रिलेशनशिप को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए और भारत को शिखर पर लाने के लिए एक पहचान बन जाए, वो शख्सियत हमारे आज के मेहमान खुसूसी मोहतरम श्री अजीत डोभाल साहब की शख्सियत. और हमारे मलिक साहब डायरेक्टर साहब स्वागत करेंगे ऑथर ऑफ द बुक प्रोफेसर अहमद टी कुरू का. जोरदार तालियां. प्रोफेसर अहमद टी कुरू, जिन्होंने 10 साल की मेहनत के बाद ऐसी किताब लिखी है जो आज 15 जबानों में छपी है, 25 से ज्यादा जबानों में उस पर रिव्यू आए हैं और पूरी दुनिया में जिस किताब का चर्चा है. और अब हमारे युवराज मलिक साहब डायरेक्टर एनबीटी हमारे गेस्ट ऑफ ऑनर मोहतरम एम जे अकबर साहब का इस्तकबाल कर रहे हैं. और अब बिना किसी ताखीर, टाइम एंड ट्राइड वेट फॉर नन, क्योंकि टाइम बहुत मुख्तसर है और बहुत कीमती है, मैं बड़े अदब और एहतराम के साथ बुक के ऑथर यानी वो शख्सियत हु बॉर्न एज ऑटोमन इन टर्की, हु इज नेशनल ऑफ यूएसए and whose heart and soul lives in India, as he explained during his 3 days stay, I welcome Professor Ahmet T. Kuru, the author of the book, to speak about the book, please. जोरदार तालियों से इस्तकबाल करें प्रोफेसर अहमद टी कुरू का. 10 minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Rahman, for organizing the event. Thank you, Mr. Akbar, Mr. Doval, for being panelists, and thank you for coming. I'm very happy to be in India, one of the biggest countries on earth, not only in terms of population, but also in terms of its culture, history, and scientific impact. So, my book, Islam, Authoritarianism and Underdevelopment, has been translated into 15 languages, but Hindi is particularly important for me for various reasons. Primarily, I analyze golden age of Islam from 8th to 12th centuries, how Muslims produce scientists, philosophers, and economic entrepreneurs. At that time, Muslims learn from ancient civilizations. They learn paper making from China, mathematics from India, philosophy from Greece, and then taught them to Europe. At the time, Europe was under dark ages. And my analysis of Muslim societies is very important for Muslims and non-Muslims to understand the complexity of Islamic history. Therefore, with 200 million Muslim minority, a large population of Hindus and other religions, India is important for my book to have a lively debate on multiple issues. So in few minutes, a few sentences, let me summarize to you what the book is about. It starts with contemporary analysis of the problem of authoritarianism and underdevelopment. Now, everywhere in the world, there are political debates and democracy in crisis. In my country, in the United States, many people are worried. I came here from Europe. I was in Vienna, where there is a discussion on the problem of terrorism, authoritarianism, and other problems. So, but as a Muslim myself, I want to examine out of 200 countries in the world, 50 Muslim majority countries. And these countries today, similar to other countries on the earth, have problems. But when we look at the history of these societies, we see much more dynamic scientific approach, philosophical approach, and development. So I've been living in the United States for 26 years. After 9/11, many people in the media, politics, they blame Islam, saying that, look, Muslim societies have problems because of their religion. And in the book, I show how weak this argument is, because Islam is a progressive religion. It was compatible with progress during the Muslim Golden Age from 8th to 12th centuries. But what is different at the time, and why don't Muslims have the same dynamism today? Some people say because of colonialism and imperialism. This is the second argument I engage in the book. So I say it is not Islam, but we should not focus on colonization either. Because colonialism, yes, it is a problem, imperialism is a problem, but instead of blaming others, foreigners, international factors, Muslim societies look at their domestic issues, focusing their own ideas and institutions. Second, chronologically, when I analyze Muslim history, stagnation, philosophical and scientific decline start before colonization. That's why instead of Islam and colonization, I point to another problem, which is the ulama-state alliance, how the Islamic authorities lost their independence and became part of state structures. Especially, they established a partnership with military states. Until the 11th, 12th centuries, in the Muslim world, there was a separation between religious authorities, political authorities, economic entrepreneurs, and scholars of philosophy. At that time, there was diversity, there was religious multiplicity, and dynamism. Whereas later on, Muslims lost that, having multiple reasons. They started to have a partnership of religion and state undermining intellectuals and economic entrepreneurs, and it led to crisis. So, is this analysis only about Muslim countries? No, it is also about Europe. So Europe, from the 5th century to 11th, 12th centuries, were a very underdeveloped region. They had the Catholic Church and state alliance, no bourgeoisie, no philosophy. Europe did not have a city like Baghdad or a philosopher like Ibn Sina. But after the 11th, 12th centuries, Europeans started to have separation between religion and state, open universities, having merchant class with economic entrepreneurship in Italy, Netherlands, and then you have the rise of Europe. When we look at today, in the United States now, Donald Trump and Elon Musk and other big corporations coming together, which is a problem because my analysis says state and corporations should be separate. If they come together, it leads to corruption and decline of democracy. And this analysis telling you many things. It says how important the early Islamic scholarship is. Let me tell you some anecdotes. Abu Hanifa, I have a Turkish origin with Hanefi, and I heard that many Muslims in India are Hanefi too. Abu Hanifa was the founder of Hanefi school. He was a silk merchant. Rather than paying by the state, he was an independent, economic, resourceful person. When the Abbasid Caliph in the 8th century invited Abu Hanifa to serve the state as a judge, qadi, Abu Hanifa said no. Then the Abbasid Caliph said, you have to give me a reason. Then Abu Hanifa said, I am not qualified as an excuse. The Abbasid Caliph, the king of the time, was angry. You are a liar, you are the most qualified. Then Abu Hanifa said, a liar can never be a judge. Then the angry ruler put him in prison and he was poisoned to death. So this shows how Muslims in their early history have leaders like Abu Hanifa who appreciate the autonomy and independence of scholarship rather than politics. Today, unfortunately, we have the problem of political Islam, who even go beyond the classical ulama-state alliance in many countries who want to establish Islamist project from Taliban to Saudi Arabia, from Iran to other countries, combining religion and politics, which didn't work. Now Iran is in crisis, Saudi Arabia tried to reform itself. What is the solution? My suggestion to Muslim societies is that the solution is democracy, solution both for Muslim majorities and minorities to accept citizenship, to accept that every citizen, regardless of their religion, are equal. So therefore, in Malaysia, in Pakistan, in Egypt, Christians, Hindus, Chinese, Taoists, everyone should be given equal rights. Similarly, Muslim minorities, I am a minority in the United States as a Turkish American Muslim minority in America. I want my state treat me as an equal citizen, but I have duties and responsibilities as a citizen to help the society, contribute society. Rather than politicizing my religion, I play a positive role as a citizen of the country. So let me conclude saying that my proposal is about secular state, democracy, citizenship. But when I said that, people said, in Tokyo, there was a scholar said, you came here to bring American project. And I told him, so what is the American project? Democratization of the Muslim society is an American project. And I say, I wish there was such a project. But United States never had the project of democratization. And my proposal is not a Western agenda of an American project. Instead, I'm trying to show Muslim readers and non-Muslim readers that when Muslims were successful from 8th to 12th centuries, it was a time of coexistence, open-mindedness, accepting diversity. Therefore, if Muslim society is minority Muslim, majority Muslims, want to engage in democracy, progress, science, it is not westernization, it is not American European agenda, but it is their history. And Muslim history is full of inspiration for a progressive future, for the young people especially, to get modeled. That's what the book tried to emphasize. Thanks for listening, and I'll be happy if there will be a question later on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Ahmet T. Kuru. Now we are going to unveil the book. In front of you, I would like to request Honorable Chief Guest, Guest of Honor, and the author, please release the book. जोरदार तालियां आप सबकी तरफ से। किताबों का एनालिसिस करने वाले मानते हैं कि 1 लाख किताबें अगर लिखी जाती हैं तो उनमें कोई एक किताब ऐसी होती है जिसे लोग खरीद के पढ़ते हैं। लेकिन इस किताब को पढ़ने के बाद मैं ये दावे से कह सकता हूँ कि ये उन बुक्स में से है कम से कम कि 1 करोड़ किताबों के अंदर से अगर एक किताब चुनी जाए तो वो इस वक्त प्रोफेसर अहमद टी कुरू की किताब जरूर होगी। जैसे लोग रिसर्चर पढ़ना चाहते हैं, स्कॉलर्स पढ़ना चाहते हैं, इंटेलेक्चुअल्स पढ़ना चाहते हैं, पॉलिटिकल साइंसेस के लोग पढ़ना चाहते हैं, इस्लामिक हिस्ट्री के स्कॉलर्स पढ़ना चाहते हैं, और इस्लाम और डेमोक्रेसी, स्टेट एंड सोसाइटी, इस सब को जो लोग जानना चाहते हैं डीपली, वो इस किताब को पढ़ना चाहते हैं। एंड खुसरो फाउंडेशन जितना भी फख्र करे, वी आर फीलिंग प्राउड कि हमने इसको हिंदी जबान में ट्रांसलेट किया, और प्रोफेसर कुरू का कहना था कि हमने उसे इतना खूबसूरत छापा है कि इतना जो ओरिजिनल कैम्ब्रिज यूनिवर्सिटी प्रेस ने जो इंग्लिश में ये किताब छापी है उससे भी ज़्यादा खूबसूरती के साथ हमने इसको छापा है, जिसको ट्रांसलेट JNU से अरबिक में PhD डॉक्टर मुबशिर आलम साहब ने किया है, और इसके हमारे प्रिंटर और डिज़ाइनर फैज साहब हैं। और खुसरो फाउंडेशन ने अभी तक जो भी किताबें पब्लिश की हैं उसमें आधे से ज़्यादा किताबें, हमने जो 30 किताबें इंक्लूडिंग ट्रांसलेशन छापी हैं, हमारी ऐसी किताबें हैं जिन्होंने फेक नैरेटिव को चैलेंज करने के बाद एक नई तारीख लिखी है। जिहाद के 100 साल में पॉलिटिकल परसेप्शन जो चल रहा था, हमने अंडरस्टैंडिंग जिहाद, तफहीम जिहाद के जरिए उस रेडिकल नैरेटिव को चैलेंज किया है। हमने ग़ज़वा हिंद के फेक नैरेटिव को एक्सपोज किया है। हमने 12 शिकों की लाइफ और वर्क को सामने लाए हैं। हम कंसेप्ट ऑफ जस्टिस इन वर्ल्ड रिलीजन लाने के बाद दुनिया के तमाम मज़ाहिब की जो ब्यूटी है उसको हम सामने लाए हैं। हम बच्चों के फ्यूचर को आपस में जोड़ने वाली और इंसानियत को, नेशनलिज्म को, पैट्रियोटिज्म को और ह्यूमैनिटी को आगे बढ़ाने वाली बच्चों की कहानियों पर आधारित एक किताब, हिंदी में सारा संसार एक परिवार, वसुदेवा कुटुंबकम, अल खल्क़ु अयालुल्लाह, और उर्दू में सारा जहान एक खानदान के नाम से हम बच्चों के लिए लेकर आए हैं। हम मुस्लिम वुमेन अ मैनिफेस्टो फॉर चेंज, जो चैलेंजेस हैं मुस्लिम वुमेन के सामने, कश्मीरी ऑथर हमारे डॉक्टर मोहम्मद मारूफ शाह की लिखी हुई अंग्रेजी जबान में लेकर आए हैं। और हम आप सबसे ये रिक्वेस्ट करेंगे कि यहाँ से जाने से पहले हॉल नंबर 23 में R58 जो खुसरो फाउंडेशन का स्टॉल है, क्योंकि वी आर फर्स्ट टाइम इन एनी वर्ल्ड बुक फेयर और दी एग्जीबिशन, वहाँ पर जाएं। और हमने किताबों की कीमत भी इतनी कम रखी है कि जितनी उस पर छपने की कॉस्ट आती है उतनी या उससे कम ही हम कीमत रखते हैं। इसके बावजूद हम स्कॉलर्स को एक अच्छा डिस्काउंट भी देते हैं। तो हमारे लिए खुसरो फाउंडेशन से मोहब्बत करने के लिए ये काफ़ी होगा कि यहाँ से जाने से पहले आप खुद ऑथर के सिग्नेचर करा के इस किताब को भी लेकर जाएं और दूसरी किताबों को भी लेकर जाएं। अब मैं बड़े अदब और एहतराम के साथ एक ऐसी शख्सियत कि जिसने जिस मौजू को छुआ है उस मौजू को तारीख बना दिया है, चाहे वो अखबार में लिखें या किताब में लिखें, अंग्रेज़ी में गुफ्तगू करें या उर्दू में गुफ्तगू करें, तारीख पे गुफ्तगू करें या सहाफ़त पे गुफ्तगू करें, अपने आप में तारीख बनते हैं। हमारे गेस्ट ऑफ ऑनर मोहतरम एम जे अकबर साहब से गुजारिश कर रहा हूँ कि शेर के साथ कि खुदा के वास्ते मोहरे सुकूत तोड़ भी दे, तमाम शहर तेरी गुफ्तगू का प्यासा है। जोरदार तालियों से स्वागत करें प्लीज।
Thank you. I said our most honorable, charismatic, but for me the most affectionate chief guest, a genuine nationalist hero in an age when heroes are disappearing. We are very privileged to have him with us. Our academic star, Professor Ahmet Kuru. May I just begin by saying that what a joy it was for me to read such great academic rigor. And these days, unfortunately, academic rigor doesn't come without bias. What I found in particular was the objectivity with which he addressed an issue which arouses controversy even before you begin to talk about it. If I had to describe the book, then I would use the terminology that he himself has used for his narrative. It follows the logic of Ibn Khaldun's famous theory of rise, decline, and renewal, in which renewal comes through a concept which, to my knowledge at least, was not addressed or examined before, the concept of asabiya, the concept of community feeling, the concept of something in a community. This is the answer to what I call the Henry Kissinger question. He asked me over and over again, what happened in the 7th century? How did people from Mecca, right, living in the desert, suddenly in the space of 20 years become a world power? The answer, because Mr. Kissinger had not clearly read Ibn Khaldun, the answer was the sudden rise of Asabiya. And for me, while Asabiya's association has been very powerful and a very powerful fact of our history, it actually, I find it a problem in the modern era, because its association and its legitimacy to the idea of royalty, and now its inability to transition into the nation state, when in fact Asabiya could have been a force multiplier. And that, I think, is the reason why the third line of that triangle, rise, decline, renewal, why the third line of the triangle of renewal went missing in the history of Muslims in the 19th century. By the way, there is nothing called Islamic history. There is a history of Muslims. Islam is a faith. A faith is a belief. A belief, for those who do believe, is a constant. He mentioned just now in his own remarks that the larger point, I think, is that the codification of Islam was not something that was immediate. It took 200 years for the codification to start, even by the creation of the laws, which you have mentioned, the great lawgivers, and indeed including the Hadith, which became the basis of much of law as it was practiced. Now, you mentioned the question of one of our four great lawgivers, Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi, Ibn Hanbal, But all of them refused the patronage of the state, not just one. All of them, and all of them, now these are the 4 pillars, 5 pillars of Islam as it is, translated into political doctrine or into social doctrine. All of them went to prison, but the important point is that because they challenged the state, because they went to prison, centuries later they still have credibility. Today, patronage has become piety. And that is the tragedy of our times, where even our ulama believe that they cannot survive without patronage. It's difficult for them to believe that the patronage of God is enough. I wish, Professor Ahmed, that I had seen more than I saw of Nizamul Mulk. Because Nizamul Mulk's book on governance should remain one of the, not only the great classics for Muslim societies, but one of the classics for all societies. Very often, and he introduced also elements of Sufism into his thinking, into his governance. I have a problem here because most people consider Sufism to be too spiritual. They think Sufism is music, which it all is, of course it is. But Sufism works because it is practical. Sufism works because it teaches you and me how to share the relationship which is beneficial, which is not hostile. And it is the practical element of Sufism which really triumphs over what you call deen wa dawla, which is the relationship of religion and the state. This relationship of state and religion is troublesome as always. But why did royalty in all religions, not just in Islam, in all religions, why did feudalism need religion? Because feudalism did not have legitimacy or credibility with the people. It was not a system born of the people. So in order to sell themselves to the people, they used God. Don't mention it too loudly, but the King of England is still the head of the church. That hasn't changed. So, one of the reasons why the Quran has so much of doctrine of governance and practical problems of governance inside it is because the Prophet was not only a messenger, and he was a messenger only for brief spells in his life. Only for those brief spells when he received the message. The rest of the time, he was just the best of men, but human. And it is his ideas of governance and the nature of war which leads to some of the most controversial verses in the Quran. Because he has to deal with the state. There are no comparisons, and please don't take me amiss, but I can't resist saying that if Jesus, for example, had become the king of the Jews, as many of his apostles wanted him to be, then Jesus would also have to lay a doctrine for the state. He couldn't have been just the prophet of the Sermon on the Mount. Now, to get to the mundane, please, from prophets to the mundane, which is very often when we look at the mundane, we have to look at people who are in. Gandhi gave us the whole doctrine of non-violence, which again, in 1918, 2 people emerged in the world. One was Lenin, one was Gandhi. And both of them dreamt of changing the world. They produced 2 models. In the end, Lenin's model collapsed in the Soviet Union. Gandhi's model still survives. But Gandhi, the father of non-violence, when he was there sitting, giving prayer meetings, when the invasion of Kashmir took place, British journalists, having lost their empire, they had yet lost their voice. So they went and asked him, now, Mahatma, what do you do about non-violence? He said, non-violence was a movement to defeat you. It is not an element of statecraft. So I support the use of state and army in order to protect the people. There is a lot of mention of Sayyid Qutb. I don't want to get into that, but I just want to remind anyone who thinks of him that Islam existed for 13 centuries before Sayyid Qutb. Democracy, another great issue taken up in the book. Analysis is very simple. Very simple. When we think that, and where I may offer a little disagreement with you, that when I look at democracy, I don't look at geography. I look at demography. How many people among the Muslim communities enjoyed democracy? The Indonesians do, Indian Muslims do. That is one of our greatest, makes us so significantly different. 500 million people, Muslims of the world, are enjoying free, unfettered democracy, freedom as understood by any template. The Chinese, from Adam till today, are still waiting for democracy. Now what does this tell us? That are states possible with and without democracy? All I'm saying is that this is something that requires more consideration as we develop, but I, being a completely fundamentalist Democrat, I agree with you completely that democracy is the answer, but more than democracy, what we need today is a return of the knowledge society. In the book you will find great descriptions of, and I'll give you only one example, which is the Abbasid, Khalif Aziz. He had a library of 1 million books. But that is not alone. There were book cities all over: Damashq, Aleppo, Basra, Nishapur, Rai, Tus, Balkh, Bukhara, Merv, all over. It succeeded not because you had a sword. These empires succeeded because they had the mind and they had knowledge. And here I am reminded of Al-Baruni's book on India. When he came with Mahmud of Ghazni. And then he stayed back for 3 years, he learned Sanskrit. And then he asks a question. He said, how come a people who have created, he looks at a well, just the well in which we, reservoirs in which, how come a people who understand physics, who can keep water clean, who can keep it nourished, who give life, how come they are defeated all the time on the battlefield? And he doesn't attribute it to martial arts. He attributes it to something which I think requires thinking. He says, these are people who had the highest knowledge, but their elite forgot something, that knowledge only grows when you give it away. It's a fundamental fact of knowledge. And maybe at some point, we need to rediscover, the decline of knowledge in Muslim societies, and that's where the decline begins, is the inability of Muslim societies to adapt and acquire printing. Amazing. Gutenberg introduces in the 15th century, and if you go to Topkapi, your country, you will find a plaque outside that the first printing press came in 1715. Why? Why for 2.5 centuries later? Because Muslim elites refused to democratize knowledge. That's why. They refused to give away knowledge. Printing is the distribution of knowledge for the masses. And I tell you, that is the reason for the decline. And unless we reverse that, I tell you, in my view, sir, I'm trying very hard to hurry, I'll just quickly finish now, that the real problem with Muslim societies today is the inability to come to terms with modernity. That's the real problem. And this inability to come to terms with modernity is going to, if it is not addressed, it is going to, feudalism is not the answer. Variations of feudalism is not the answer. And political modernity begins with the emergence of the age of the nation state after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. And the inability to understand the nation state and what it requires is, I believe, the fundamental problem. I will end by raising a very important challenge to the book. Sir, well, congratulations for everything. Your book is either incomplete or it has not brought the subject to the modern era. Because you cannot have an understanding of authoritarianism, Islam and underdevelopment without examining the story of Pakistan. Pakistan was the first state in history that was created for Islam. It was not created for Muslims. It was created for Islam. And you can see the fundamental weakness lay in the slogan of Pakistan. Islam khatre mein hai. Islam is in danger. That was the slogan that rode through and captured the Muslim mind, at least the middle class mind. I tell you, anyone who says that Islam is in danger is not a Muslim. Because if you are a believer, how can your faith be in danger? Muslims can be in danger, but Islam cannot be in danger. Islam was never in danger when there was only one Muslim in the world. How can it be in danger today? What right do you have to mislead the people with a false slogan and partition this country and create institutional, generational conflict into a society which has still not disappeared? Allah is Rabbul Alameen. Allah is not even Rabbul Muslimin. He's not only the Allah of just Muslims, he's the Rabb of the whole universe. You can't trap and imprison Allah into one nation state. Islam belongs to every Muslim. Pakistan doesn't belong to every Muslim. Jinnah, sir, was never a Muslim. Never a Muslim. I can recount you 10 things in order to justify it, but I'll just give you. He used to go abroad every year. Every year he would go spend abroad. He never once went for Hajj. Not once. He used to stop in Cairo all the time. It was a minor detour. And Jinnah took Pakistan away from the philosophy of daya, of companionship, of faith through a handshake, and made it into the faith of Sijda, but not Sijda to God, Sijda to the British. He maybe understood freedom, but he never understood independence. That is why Pakistan is the most dependent country in the world today. Maybe, sir, in your next edition, you will examine this. Thank you.
थैंक यू सो मच सर। वसीम बरेलवी साहब ने कहा है कि कौन सी बात कहाँ कैसे कही जाती है। ये सलीका हो तो हर बात सुनी जाती है, और ये हुनर एम जे अकबर साहब को बखूबी आता है कि अपनी बात सच्चाई के साथ भी कहते हैं और मजबूती के साथ भी कहते हैं, और सच वही होता है जो सर चढ़ के बोलता है। अब मैं अपने मेहमान खुसूसी यानी एक ऐसी शख्सियत की तरफ जाना चाहता हूँ जिस शख्सियत को अगर मजहब के एंगल से देखा जाए तो उनकी एक आंख हिंदू है तो दूसरी मुस्लिम है, और उससे मिलकर हिंदुस्तान बसता है। उनके फिक्र में अगर एक तरफ स्वामी विवेकानंद बसते हैं तो दूसरी तरफ उनकी फिक्र में अमीर खुसरो और दारा शिकोह बसते हैं। अगर रूमी का एक मास्टर लाइनर है, तू बराए वसल कर बनामदी, मैं बराए फसल कर बनामदी, यू हैव बीन सेंट टू यूनाइट नॉट टू डिवाइड। अगर इस फिलॉसफी को लेकर कोई इंसान एज ए NSA पूरी दुनिया में चल रहा है अच्छे रिलेशंस बनाने के लिए, नौजवानों को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए, अगर हम हिंदुस्तान में देखें तो वो पंचतंत्रा की भी नुमाइंदगी करते हैं, तो बैरूनी की तहकीक को मालू हिंद को भी आगे बढ़ाना चाहते हैं। वो एक तरफ डॉक्टर APJ अब्दुल कलाम भी उनके अंदर नजर आता है तो हमें उनके अंदर भगत सिंह भी नजर आता है। अपने देश को आसमान की बुलंदियों पर देखना और इस देश के बसने वाले हर नौजवान के हाथों में कलम देखना और उसको सितारों पर कमल डालते हुए देखना, जिसके लिए इकबाल ने कहा था कि मोहब्बत मुझे उन जवानों से है सितारों पर जो डालते हैं कमल। अगर उसका कोई लिविंग एग्जाम्पल है तो वो हमारे आज के मेहमान खुसूसी मोहतरम श्री अजीत डोवाल साहब NSA गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया हैं, जिन्हें लोग जेम्स बॉन्ड कहते हैं या उनको हिंदुस्तान का डायमंड कहते हैं। मैं बड़े अदब और एहतराम के साथ, और उन्होंने हमेशा हमारी सरपरस्ती की है शेख ईसा के साथ, शेख ईसा साहब डॉक्टर अलीसा को सऊदी अरब से बुलाया था। उस वक्त खुसरो फाउंडेशन ने एक रिक्वेस्ट की थी कि सर आप भी लेक्चर दें, तो आपने हमारी दावत को कबूल किया था, हम इसके लिए शुक्रगुजार हैं। आपने गाइड किया कि बच्चों की किताबें यानी बच्चों के लिए कैसा लिटरेचर होना चाहिए, हम आपके इसके लिए शुक्रगुजार हैं कि आप लिटरेचर से मोहब्बत करते हैं, आप इंसानियत से मोहब्बत करते हैं, आप हिंदुस्तानियत से मोहब्बत करते हैं। और जाहिर है कि ये हक सिर्फ हिंदुस्तान को है कि दुनिया में कोई ऐसा मुल्क नहीं जिसमें इतनी ज़्यादा ज़बानें, इतनी ज़्यादा तहजीबें, इतने ज़्यादा रंग, इतने ज़्यादा मौसम पाए जाते हों। तो दुनिया का कोई भी देश हिंदुस्तान के अलावा आने वाले वक्त में सुपर पावर नहीं बन सकता। इसी के लिए खुसरो ने कहा था कि दुनिया में कोई भी देश हिंदुस्तान से अच्छा नहीं है, और इसलिए हम खुसरो फाउंडेशन उन्हीं के नाम पे इसको आगे बढ़ा रहे हैं। मैं उर्दू के इस कपलेट के साथ आपसे रिक्वेस्ट करना चाहता हूं कि जब भी मिलते हैं वो अंदाज जुदा होता है, चांद 100 बार भी निकले तो नया होता है। जोरदार तालियों से इस्तकबाल करें आज के मेहमान खुसूसी का कि वो तशरीफ लाएं और अपने ख्यालात से, अपने मार्गदर्शन, अपनी गाइडेंस और अपनी मेंटरशिप से हमें नवाजें। प्लीज सर।
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया हाफिजुर रहमान साहब। I am indeed very grateful to Khusro Foundation for giving me this opportunity to be here. And it is indeed a great opportunity to listen and be here with Dr. Kuru, a very eminent scholar, a person who can think original and person who can convincingly communicate his message. And I think it's also a very special occasion when a scholar of the stature of Shri Akbar is also there on the dais. So I must say we are really proud of what he has contributed to our society in various diverse ways. I think a very versatile personality, whether it is in statecraft or whether it's about international relations or the history of religions or the Indian history of the subcontinent of the world, I think one of the most authentic ones. So thank you very much, Mr. Akbar. I must compliment Khusro Foundation for its initiative for bringing out the literature. Books have been a very important instrument of communicating the ideas, and all dynamic societies have got the dissemination of ideas and of the knowledge as one of the most important requirement of the growth of any society or a nation. And it was amply amplified by Akbar Sahib, so I want to reiterate that. Well, friends, the phenomenon of the relationship of state and religion is not unique to Islam. And as was brought out by Dr. Kuru, that in different stages of history of Islam also, probably it's changed, waned and waxed, and also in different societies. Probably he said that Abbas said this was probably there was a very, very clear understanding of what is the role of the clergy and what is the role of the state. And probably thereafter there was an overlap. In the Oriental societies also, in Hinduism also, there has been this thing. But there has been one difference. And I don't think that even in times ahead, probably there will be a total separation. The problem is this, that the conflicts are inherent in any ideology, thought or belief system, or in the existence of any state. Any thought or any ideology has to be competitive. If it is not competitive, then it is no more, it is universally accepted. So there will be only one. If there is more than one faith and one this thing, similarly, unless there is one world state, there will be the states who will have the different conflicts. They will have peace, they will have wars. The problem is this, how do we resolve these conflicts? What is the conflict mitigation or resolution mechanism or the mindset of the societies? I can tell you about the Indian example. First conflict is between the man himself. The conflict between what your competing beliefs, thoughts, needs, aspirations are. Even about your relationship to the other human beings and to the God and to the society. You yourself may have more than one view, and sometimes you might be swinging. Now, this conflict was resolved in Hinduism and the Oriental religions by a process of meditation. That is a dialogue with your own self. You engage your own self. Then it was societal. The societal conflicts were resolved through dialogue. And we had a great tradition of what we used to call the Shastrarth. Even in this part of the world, there had been various thoughts. The Buddhism came, and it came in conflict with the then existing Sanatana Dharma, Hinduism. The conflict, how was it resolved? There used to be the frequent debates going for days and months sometimes between the thinkers and the scholars. The famous dialogue between Mandan Mishra and Adi Shankaracharya, which lasted for these things, about understanding the concept of God and the human. So the conflict resolution was done in a way which was different from how the state does the conflict resolution. When the state has got the conflicts, it goes to war. It uses the instruments of coercion. But the competitiveness of the thoughts or the faith or the beliefs which will keep on coming and mushrooming probably cannot be resolved by the same instruments by which the state resolves itself. Problems come when Islam thought that this is possible to resolve the competitiveness or the this thing of the thoughts and the beliefs through the same instruments as the state. Now, what happens on that? That doesn't matter that whether the state will be able to spread a religion or not. That new ideas and new thoughts stop coming. Once coercion becomes an instrument of countering the competitive thoughts. But anyone who holds a view different than you, if you are the winner, he will exterminate you, and if the other man wins, he exterminates, you are the... So one of you survive. So the new thoughts stop sprouting. If you want any change, any progress, any this thing, and you have to ponder over that why is it that some societies became stagnant? Those societies which could not generate new thoughts, the new ideas, look at the outer box and look at the things fundamentally. Probably they got stagnated at a point of time. And there was a deliberate effort of the vested interest to maintain that the status quo in the thinking process. Akbar Sahib mentioned about the printing press. It's very interesting. Probably some of you might be knowing it. The original idea of the printing press came in the Ottoman Empire. Martin Gutenberg of this thing in Germany, who invented it in the 14th century, was able to bring out this thing. And at that point of time, the biggest resistance came from the clergy, who did not want the thoughts or the ideas to be sprung on which they thought that they have got the monopoly. Though the fatwas which were issued were mainly on this thing, that Islam will be misinterpreted and projected in a way which is not its real content or which is not its real meaning, which they thought the real meaning is what they understood it. That put, when we say that we blame colonialism, we should understand one of the important instruments of colonialism was the printing press. That is the time for the 300 years by which the Islamic countries decided to go for the printing and the concept of books. That 300 years gave them the monopolistic lead over the territories and the areas where they could spread and they could have this thing. The thoughts could not be disseminated. They could not be taken to the people. So the idea is this, that is whether it is justified to blame colonialism or the others for all that is wrong with us. The need for introspection, which I said, is extremely important. Introspection by the individuals, by the societies, and by the states. Whether it is in the statecraft, whether it is in the societal relationships, or whether it is with the individual conduct and the thinking process. We should not allow our brains to be enslaved by the voices, by the prejudices, by this thing, which are derived by motives other than a very objective and a scientific examination of the reality. The world does not remain static. We have to evolve ourselves. Our thoughts have to evolve ourselves. At the same time, it does not mean that in any way it undermines your fidelity to your faith systems, which must be respected and which must be honored. There is no doubt about that. But to become stagnant and refusing to look at the new and emerging realities probably may not be the same. It is in this context when we say underdevelopment or we talk about democracies and the others. Probably just somebody was 300 years late in getting to the printing press. Some Islamic societies may be few centuries late in adopting to democracy and listening to the voice of the common man, the people. Probably that's an important that cannot be ignored. If it is not in this century, it may be the next century or maybe the next century. But when you lose the time, the transformation and the change and the progress, both the direction of change and the speed of change are important. If you do it too late, probably you always remain at the back. By the time the things have evolved to the new heights and in the new this thing, I must thank the Khusro Foundation for bringing out new thought-provoking ideas, trying to bring about how the society can evolve itself, improve itself, how every child who is going to live in this world for another 80 years or 90 years starts the life with new thinking, with broad horizons, with a broader spectrum awareness, and is able to contribute to his own good to this society and the world. Thank you very much once again, Mr. Hafizur Rahman Saab, and my special thanks to Mr. Kuru, who has really brought out an excellent book. I've just glanced through some parts of it and seen some of his reviews. Actually, the thoughts that he has brought about are really very new to me. I would like to go through them in greater detail and the historical perspective by which he has been able to analyze that how in the Islamic society, while there is no single factor which is responsible for what is wrong. There are multiple factors, but sometimes attributing it to a single factor and which may be external because you don't want to blame your own self, probably if the diagnosis is wrong, the cure cannot be right. So you have got to look at it, this thing, while colonialism, mercantilism, the economic exploitation might have been the causes which led to the degradation of the certain societies and certain countries and certain nation states. Probably there were reasons other than it also which have got to be understood. So we thank Dr. Kuru once again for his visit and for his contribution and for allowing the Khusro Foundation to have its English Hindi translation, which I think will give it access to a very large number of Indians of all communities and of all religions. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please stand and have a standing ovation for our honorable chief guest of the evening, who is himself a history, who will remain always in history, who will inspire the society and the country and the coming generations. अगर एक एक का शुक्रिया अदा किया जाए तो वक्त बहुत ज़्यादा हो जाएगा, लेकिन इतनी कीमती शख्सियात इस थोड़े से वक्त में हमारे बीच तशरीफ लाई हैं. Sir, please have seat, sir. So I would like to thank all my distinguished guests, the author of the book, Professor Kuru, His Excellency, our Honorable Chief Guest, Shri Ajit Doval, sir, NSA Government of India, our guest of honor, मोहतरम एम जे अकबर साहब और हमारे सामने जितनी कीमती शख्सियात बैठी हुई हैं, फॉर्मर सीईसी गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया SY कुरैशी सर, डायरेक्टर NCPL डॉक्टर शम्स इकबाल साहब, रजिस्ट्रार जामिया मिल्लिया इस्लामिया प्रोफेसर महताब आलम साहब, फॉर्मर कमिश्नर रिटायर्ड IRS सैयद महमूद अख्तर साहब, एडवोकेट मोहम्मद इकराम साहब, हमारे डायरेक्टर खुसरो फाउंडेशन मोहतरम सिराजुद्दीन कुरैशी साहब और हमारे डायरेक्टर गाइड मोहतरम शांतनु मुखर्जी सर, ऑनरेबल श्री रामाचंद्रन सर, डिप्टी NSA गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया, JNU से प्रोफेसर मुजीबुर रहमान साहब, सैयद तौकीर आलम साहब, वाइस प्रेसिडेंट डॉक्टर जाकिर हुसैन फाउंडेशन नकवी साहब, प्रोफेसर मोहसिन अली साहब, हमारे जो डॉक्टर मुबशिर आलम साहब हैं, रब्बानी साहब एक बहुत बड़े आलिम, कश्मीर से एक बहुत बड़े स्कॉलर जो अजहरी भी हैं तौसीफ वानी साहब, कश्मीर से आर्मी कॉलेज की प्रिंसिपल मोहतरमा इला उपाध्याय साहिबा, इस्लामिक स्कॉलर डॉक्टर रुचिका अरोरा, ऑल द वे फ्रॉम बरेली प्रोफेसर नीतू शर्मा, मोहतरमा तहमीना रिजवी, एंड ऑल्सो माई लिटिल डॉटर एंड माई बिलोवेड वाइफ also here, डॉक्टर शुजात अली कादरी साहब, आवाज दी वॉइस जो 6 लैंग्वेजेस में आज पूरी दुनिया में उर्दू, हिंदी, अंग्रेजी, आसामीज, मराठी और अरबिक के साथ चल रहा है, द फर्स्ट अरबिक चैनल फ्रॉम इंडिया। और मैंने खुद जिससे अपने करियर की शुरुआत की थी उसके एडिटर इन चीफ मिस्टर आतिर खान साहब और जितने भी हमारे मीडिया के दोस्त यहाँ पर हैं, मैं सबका दिल से वेलकम करता हूँ, खैर मकदम करता हूँ, स्वागत करता हूँ, धन्यवाद करता हूँ। और हमारे पास लफ्ज़ बहुत कम हैं, अभी आपके हाथ में एक ब्रोशर होगा और हम चाहेंगे कि जो बुक यहाँ पर रिलीज हुई है जिसकी हार्ड बाउंड की प्राइस 650, नॉर्मल की 600 है, लेकिन आज इसकी लॉन्चिंग प्राइस सिर्फ 500 खुसरो फाउंडेशन की तरफ से है कि आप जाएं तो एक एक कॉपी अपने साथ ऑथर से साइन करा के लेके जाएं। इसी के साथ ये वक्त कैसे रुके, किसका इंतजार करे, यहाँ तो रोज नया कारवां गुजरता है। साकिब सलीम साहब, डॉक्टर रेशमा, बहुत अच्छे पोएट मुइन शादाब साहब, और कोई भी अगर नाम मौलाना इंतजार कादरी साहब, जावेद रहमानी साहब, MSO के चेयरमैन डॉक्टर शुजात अली कादरी साहब और तमाम लेडीज एंड जेंटलमैन, हम आप तमाम लोगों का, आशा कोजा साहिबा, जितने भी लोग हैं एक एक करके मैं किसका नाम पुकारूं, मैं किसका नाम न लूं, यहाँ तो जो भी है अपने आप में वो एकता है। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, थैंक यू सो मच, thank you so much, and thank you so much sir for your mentoring, for your guidance और for your insightful and remarkable words जो हमारे लिए, हमारे फ्यूचर के लिए बहुत ही हमें एनर्जाइज करते हैं। एंड माई रिस्पेक्टेड डायरेक्टर्स के जिनकी गाइडेंस हमें हमेशा 24 आवर्स इनकरेज करती है आगे बढ़ाने के लिए। हमदर्द से हमारे तौहीद आलम साहब, वाइस चांसलर के OSD, I welcome you all, और प्रोफेसर फिरदौस आजमत साहिबा और डॉक्टर महबूब आलम साहब, द हेड ऑफ आवाज डिवाइस अरबिक, और इन तमाम लोगों का मैं अगर कोई छूट गया है तो उससे माजरत चाहता हूँ। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, थैंक यू सो मच, थैंक यू सो मच।